Hello and welcome. If you're joining us live tonight, good evening. I'm Randy. I'm here with Angela of Rose Alchemy Healing in Sedona at the Humankind Center. And we're going to talk a little bit about emotional healing and some of the work that Angela does. And before we get into her background, I'd like to just jump right into some questions and see what comes up. So here we go. So Angela, welcome.
Well, thank you.
We've had a great conversation last week and you decided to do this, so this is going to be a lot of fun. I've been looking forward to this. So before we get into your background, like I said, why do you think people come to Sedona? What are they looking for? What's your experience around that?
So many people come here, and it's funny, you'd think that they would want to come and relax, and what I found is they come and they sign up for every tour, and they go hiking and biking, and they go, 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 go. And so the very first thing I tell people is this is a vortex, and that's also why they come here. But it's a great place to slow down and connect with Earth Mother and the Earth energies and feel the calmness that can actually come over you while you're here. And it's super healing. The Earth energy is very strong, so while you lay, if you lay on the ground, either at one of the beautiful spots such as Bell Rock or perhaps the stupa, you can actually pick up some of those healing energies from the earth. And when I tell people that, of course, it interests them, maybe more so than the hiking and biking.
But people don't always jump right into that. Why do you think they're hesitant to engage with somebody like yourself who's in the healing arts?
Well, they might have a previous idea of what hokey thing is going on here. You know, and some things that many of us know if we're spiritual practitioners is there is that feeling of commercialism. And I think,
and some are, and there are a lot of people who claim to be healers, who aren't necessarily grounded, who aren't necessarily centered in their heart, who don't necessarily have the things to offer that somebody can take home and really make use of. Mm-hmm. From what I've learned about your practice, you have some real tools people can use. So, again, why would people hesitate to jump in? Why do you think?
Again, they feel like it's hokey. I mean, I know if something feels hokey, I might not want to do it. Now, what is the definition of hokey or woo-woo? Everyone's going to have their own definition. So I'd like to think of myself as a very practical, I like to be a grounded sort of, I want someone to see me and on my authentic truth. I tend to be a very grounded, practical, everyday kind of gal. And I just don't know that I come off as, you know, people use pendulums, for instance, or they're into, you know, Bigfoot or aliens. You want it, you got it here in Sedona. And truth be told, there is a lot of that to hear. And I'm not downing on any of those things. But what I like to say I bring is a space for you to kind of calm down, work with your nervous system, breathe, tune into some things maybe that you actually are getting away from with the hamster wheel of life. Because people do come here to experience the beauty of the red rocks. It's unmistakable. The first things that people do is they come here and they even if they don't know it, they are here to see that majesty and the beauty that the earth offers here. And
which is all around us here. We don't necessarily see it, but it's here.
It's funny, I live in outside of Sedona, so whenever I drive in, I just think, oh, I'm so blessed to live here. It's truly one of the most stunning places on earth. So I don't know if you can get around that.
So if somebody engages with you, then one of the first things it sounds like you do is help them kind of slow down and find their center. So you have particular things you like to exercises you take them through, different places that you like to go here in town to take them. What do you give the audience a little idea of what to expect if they're going to work with you?
So everything I do is what I call elemental connection, and it's working with the elements, which is what we are. We are earth. We are made of earth and air. One of the first things that happen when you come onto the earth plane is you are born from your mother and you come out and you cry. However you were born, you come from a woman and you come out and you breathe oxygen and then you cry. And then from there, I help people tune in earth, air, fire. that which is illuminating itself for you to be able to see. Also the things that we're passionate about, things that you care about, things that give you purpose, things that might be out of alignment. So we work with fire to help with boundaries and to bring clarity. And then also with water. And water is my favorite element. I'm a mermaid, I jokingly say. I think anytime that you are really struggling, if you can come back to the water, come back to that first medicine.
It's pretty universal, water is.
Yeah.
But then again, if somebody connects with something else, with earth or fire or air, then you have, then you're familiar with bringing that particular person with those tendencies back down to connecting with the earth. So you have more than one technique to help people find their center.
And I was able to sit with one of the indigenous grandmothers named Grandma Agnes Pilgrim. And I get very emotional because sitting at one of those elders' feet numerous times was such an honor. And I was able to help her at a conference once. And so I had some special times with her. And only a few of us got the chance. And now she's passed away. She's gone over the Rainbow Bridge. And those sacred moments of her sharing, my children have compassion for each other, have compassion for ourselves. And to drink water and to pray with the water and to be mindful of how you're using the water. So I bring some of those sweet teachings that maybe people have never heard before. You know, water is such an interesting element because most of us are so privileged. We're so blessed to have clear water. And there's people in the world that have never seen clear water.
I've been to some of those places in the world, and it's just
and
crazy.
We wouldn't think of drinking brown
No.
water, you know, and here, and I say this, we go to the bathroom in clear water and clean water. And so water is truly, water is life. And without water, we cease to exist. So I really like to bring people to that space. And, you know, some really sweet moments happen when you taste prayed over blessed water that they did themselves. And it's a sweet part of what I offer.
And then you have the option of taking people to a venue where there's water, whether it's a creek or whatever it might be.
Yes, some of the most profound healings I've ever witnessed in my life have been here in the creek areas. There was one woman specifically that was very drawn to that. I call it the elemental cleanse. And I like for them to bring a witness because often in ceremony, it's fine if there's, you know, myself and another woman or her and a practitioner, but it's that much more potent when there's someone that cares about you that is there to witness. So it's usually myself and two other. I've mostly worked with women in this area. I ask if they would like to wear white or whatever clothing they feel comfortable with. And we drive together to a specific area. I have a specific area in Sedona, Cornville, actually, that I love to go. And the water is beautiful and super sacred there. And I do an earth, air, fire, water setup that I have that I bring with myself everywhere I go in a basket. And it's just become my medicine, what I offer. And they open up and they share what they want to let go of, what they've been struggling with, and the profound experience of self-initiatory, sort of a baptism, if you will.
So that can only happen when you're able to provide a safe place for them, a place where they know that they're not going to be embarrassed, they're not going to have to deal with worrying what's around them in the environment. So you're used to setting that kind of environment up during the healing process.
Absolutely. And, you know, going somewhere public would not, that wouldn't be happening. So it's, one, beautiful. And even though the water is freezing, they don't mind. It's profound. And they only get in it once we've done a fair amount of sharing. So it almost feels like they're being reborn. They're letting go. I ask if they'd like to dip 3 times, one to release the past, one to release anything that's happening in the future or in the present, and then something they'd like to bring into the future. And I've seen 30, 40 years removed off of their face when they bring themselves back up. And it is beautiful. I mean, you have to cry. You will end up crying.
So you're helping these people go through an emotional experience to release old wounds, to release old patterns and thoughts and ideas, and to look at the world differently.
Absolutely. Yeah. People will have so much, our world is pretty heavy. And so there's so many things that we all are working on and releasing, whether it's past relationships or careers or weight. People have lost, hundreds of pounds, and they've come and they show me their before and after photo. It's amazing what people are. There's a lot of people doing the work right now, I'm finding. And
so I want to go a little deeper into the emotional part of the healing, but first let me ask you a question. What about the men who come to you and you're going to take them through an emotional healing? First of all, men typically tend to be a lot more guarded, and we as men are not ready to go to a place of being emotionally vulnerable. So what's your experience with that?
They usually come with their wife or their partner. I have had several guys, though, that, have come to me. Sound healings, they enjoy that. But I have had couples mostly coming if I work with men. And it's, you got to love the women because they bring their guy to something they are not expecting. What did you sign me up for? And it's quite profound. I've seen numerous times. For instance, immediately I think of this group of 4, 2 couples, and they were coming to Sedona. And of course, the guys wanted to do the tours and the hiking and the biking, and the women were fine with that. And they also wanted the guys to have, more of a spiritual experience. So this particular group, the 2 guys were, manly men, and here they are with my setup that's kind of feminine. And they had a profound experience with going deep into sound healing to experience deep theta waves, which is what bowls and a gong will provide if you allow. And I often will have a set of oracle cards on the floor in a beautiful geometric pattern. And when one of them rose after the sound healing, he picked a white stag card.
Okay, and what does that mean?
Well, I didn't know this. Nobody would have known this, but his dad had passed away, and he had had an amazing experience, dream state experience during the sound healing, and he saw his dad, or had an experience with his dad in the dream state, and his dad and him used to go hunting. And so for him to receive that masculine, sort of mysterious white stag card in my Celtic deck, he was totally touched.
It's an affirmation, and it's a trigger at the same time. A trigger back to those memories, back to those emotional connections he had that he may not have experienced completely. Mm-hmm. So let's talk a little bit about that. I think you and I have a similar philosophy on the most profound healing we can do is at an emotional level. We all grow up as children, and even if we don't have a traumatic background, a traumatic upbringing, we're children. And some of the things that I experienced, people today would say, "Oh, you're a wimp. That shouldn't have affected you." Yeah, but I was 4 years old, right. And I internalized this. And when I look at myself now, I can be judgmental, or I can say, "Wow, that was real for me, and that was scary as a child." And if I didn't clear that out completely, then it affects me today. So tell me a little bit about your take on how old emotional wounds affect our reality today, and how you and others can help people heal those wounds and change our lives.
Yes, so a lot of people come to Sedona not recognizing, they'll go to any spiritual Mecca, whether it be Egypt or Sedona for that matter, and they'll not necessarily know what they're looking for. They can't quite put their finger on it, but they're looking for something. And with the proper kind of guidance of communication back and forth with some questions, I find that the safety that can be created in the moment allows for them to share perhaps thoughts that came to from when they were 6 or when they were 9. Or sometimes it's when there was an accident, or when they got in trouble, or, and some things are very funny, but they've internalized it in such a way where it isn't so funny now.
But it's funny after we heal it, but at the
right.
moment,
totally.
It's not.
It's not funny at all. And in fact, quite a lot of wounds are pretty horrific, and the things we don't want to remember. And so that's where people will experience like post-traumatic stress, if they remember something or they have a trigger of that, it will bring it as if it's happening in the moment.
So your experience tells you or shows you clearly that when people are willing to be courageous enough to go back and address those old wounds and work through them again, re-experience those old wounds and the emotions around those, then their life changes. So talk a little bit about that from your perspective.
Yeah, I mean, this is where some people may consider it, wackadoodle or silly or woo-woo or whatever, but it's truly the way we think and the way that we hold the thoughts and our belief system. It dramatically impacts our now, our present. So things that may have happened in the past that have been very traumatic, there's ability to find at least some sort of peace and perhaps closure with those things.
And release the energy that our
Yes.
body holds around those memories.
And know that you're an adult now and you can bring that child with you now and hold their hand and still be a functioning, fabulous adult.
And that's something a lot of, especially men, don't want to look at. Well, there's child in me. There's no child in me. I'm an adult now. I don't need that silliness. But I find that the creative part of being human comes from the child part of us. The curiosity. The curiosity of a child, the joy of a child, having fun, those are all related to the child within us. Yet as adults in the modern world, and especially as men, then no, that's not real. I'm not going to let that part take over my reality, because for us as adults, it's scary that a child's in charge or could be in charge. Now, I'm not saying the child has to be in charge when we go back and deal with those old memories. But again, that's, I think, one of the reasons that men especially don't want to go back and address those wounds from the child, is because it's just safer to turn that off. But you have ways to help people through that.
Well, I mean, accessing vulnerability is really a wonderful thing. And it's okay to cry. In fact, crying makes you feel better most of the time. Once you've had that release of that emotional sort of block, even if it's one time, then they can have that emotional response again and again. And knowing that they're in a safe place. I'm not here to, people have told me some wild stories, and I'm not here to be in a space of judging or condemning anyone for anything that they're thinking. I was with a family with 2 boys, and there was quite a lot shared that maybe a psychologist wouldn't be able to hold space for. Or they might turn the children in. You know what I mean? Like real dark stuff.
Yeah.
And I was able to have those boys know that I was not going to judge those thoughts that they were having. And we went pretty deep and pretty dark. And it was pretty scary. And the mom was horrified.
In the moment.
In the moment. And we were at the side of a creek bed. And it was a real special day for them. And now I can say we went so deep into some pretty dark thoughts. Now they both have girlfriends. They're doing wonderfully, and they're living a super healthy teenage life because they got past some of the darkness that they were really experiencing and holding in their bodies.
So instead of suppressing those emotions and denying them and those thoughts and
Yes.
emotions around the thoughts. For me, emotion is a huge part of all of it. The thoughts are important, but the emotion is really the deepest part that's most difficult to get to. So when they got to re-experience those thoughts and the emotions around them, and you created the safe space for that, then they were able to experience it in a way that they were able to then release it.
Well, I think a lot of us are afraid of some of the things we think of. I have it, we all have it, where we are thinking things we can't believe we're thinking. And it could be embarrassing, it could be shocking if someone else heard. So we suppress those things because we don't want anyone to know. And when I'm able to provide someone the understanding that I don't care what they say, I'm not going to judge them. It's true, some of our thoughts can be fairly dark, if you want to say that. A shadow, if you will. But I don't like people to think that. It's like, don't concentrate on whether it's right, wrong, bad, good, any of that.
The judgment doesn't help.
No. You want that stuff to come out of the body.
And the only way it can come out is to actually acknowledge it and feel it, and a lot of times, for me, cry the tears.
Yeah. Cry tears and acknowledge that you were even experiencing thoughts that were something you might have even been embarrassed of. That's a big piece, I find, Embarrassment. It's interesting. It's an interesting energy for people.
Embarrassment is a form of shame. Men never want to talk about shame because we feel that we're weak if we feel shame. But we do feel embarrassment, which to me is a form of shame, really. And so we avoid that because we don't want to be exposed as weak.
And the ego, we don't want to have anyone, don't let anyone see you down, or however that saying goes. Don't show that you have any weaknesses. You got to keep it all together all the time. I know that I'm one for my Nana would say, don't let anyone know that we're having problems. Or if you were fighting in the car before you got to an event, you try and cover it up as fast as possible. Don't let anyone see you sweat, is what I was thinking. So there's an idea in our society that you have to live sort of this perfection of a life, and it's totally a lie. And I don't think social media has necessarily helped us.
Absolutely not.
Because we only showcase the best day. So I purposely, on my social media, will post myself if I'm upset or crying, and people don't get it. Or if I'm, having neck pain or whatever. I like to showcase my life in a way where I'm real. I'm just like anybody else. I have up days, down days, and we're all on this earth together. So there's no one better than anyone else per se. We may just make different decisions and have different experiences.
Which is the intent of the whole game. It's free will and choice, and which brings each of us our own challenges and each of us our own opportunity to find healing. So what else would you like to talk about with regards to Sedona, with your experience and your practice? You've been involved in healing arts for 15 years now. You've been in the Sedona area for about 5 years, but 15 years is quite a background.
I have a question from online.
Excellent.
So this might be for both of you. I don't know if it's just for one of you, but it's from Monica.
Okay.
What has Sedona given you personally since being here?
Hi, Monica. Mon. I think that's my friend Mon.
Hello, Monica.
Do you want to answer? Do you want me?
Well, yeah, I'll talk about what it's brought up from me. For me, it's amplified any of my demons. It's put me in a place where anything that I didn't necessarily know was there, didn't necessarily want to dive into, it put me in a position where I had no choice. And so the challenges where I was triggered, so to speak, and I had emotional reactions, those are wonderful gifts. And then I get an opportunity to look at myself and say, how can I heal? How can I change my mindset? How can I change the world by changing myself, which is the only way we can change the world. So Sedona's been a great gift for me to amplify those things that have allowed me to see my own demons and my own opportunity for healing.
Totally. Yeah, I've been dealing with fire since I've gotten here. I lived in Hawaii. We did water. We've done earth. When I got here, it was fire. So a lot of anger. Interestingly, it's in the desert, so of course it's fire. And what that really helped me was define some of my elemental connection around what fire does. And I found this to be quite potent for people, because quite a lot of us push our upset, irritation, frustration, all those things to the side, and deny and even lie to ourselves that we even have those feelings. And so it's been very helpful to use fire, the element of fire, to essentially, metaphorically, but like physically seeing when you light a candle, it illuminates the surroundings. So it helps us see.
And it's transformational as well.
And it's done so much for people when I talk about fire. And I love fire now. And, being that fire is one of the very sacred elements as well, the Greek temples used to hold the flame, the eternal flames, in the center of the citadel. So the fire element, the hearth, the center of a home, the place where you kept that eternal flame, is super sacred. So I feel like I'm going to be writing about this piece and feel really confident about it, having gone through all the anger and moving through such depth of agitation, frustration, the demons, so to speak, looking at yourself. I mean, you can run away from yourself, but it doesn't really work. It doesn't work at all, actually.
Wherever we go, there we are.
Yeah, exactly.
So fire, even if it's in just a small flame in a candle in a ceremony, has the same effect as a bonfire. Can.
I mean, fire is fire, maybe, but It's the element of it, whether it's a sweet or a large fire. Fire is, yeah.
But it
the
activates
element of
another
it.
part of us and our connection with the earth and
For
that
sure.
connection with all the elements.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I know everything about all of these elements, but it's as it unfolds for you, the elements really can help you tune into the things that matter to you, the things that you care about. And if you didn't care about it, you might not give a damn. So it didn't matter whether you were upset, frustrated, or anything, because you just move on. But when we get upset at things, it might be good to look at it as to what's going on here. I like to call it self-triage. You sort of start a personal inquiry of what's going on for me right now. And that's where I go right into earth. Slow everything down. Because if you're hangry, whether you need to eat something, there's some practical tools that this is something that I enjoy sharing with people. By the time you're upset, it's a good idea to look at when was the last time I ate something.
Absolutely. And Layla, my wife, who I'm guessing is watching, she always says, never make a decision. First of all, don't drink and text. Don't drink and dial. I don't drink, so that's not a problem. And then don't make a decision on an empty stomach.
Yeah.
And
Don't go grocery shopping.
Don't go grocery shopping on an empty stomach, absolutely. But those things that help us become grounded and centered in the moment, in touch with nature, not in our mind, and in touch with our body, and they make a big difference.
Oh, yeah, totally. And if you're hungry, that can be one of the first pieces of awareness that can be really foundational in waking up, so to speak, is beginning to become aware of how food helps you or doesn't help you, or how it helps you, makes your body feel, so to speak. So that's one place to start if you're wanting to connect with something that's conscious, is food.
So do you work with that, with nutrition and diet and such with people, or do you have somebody you suggest, or what would you like to add with that?
I am not a nutritionist or a dietitian. However, I encourage people to do a food journal or to write how they feel when they eat certain things. If they feel that they're gluten intolerant, well, what did you eat and what happened? So your awareness to how you feel when you're dehydrated, your awareness to feel when you're tired, your awareness it's so funny. My mother said when I first started going through all of this, she said, awareness, that's pretty woo-woo. It's really out there. If my mom's watching. And it's so funny because awareness isn't woo-woo.
No.
But you might think if you didn't know. So I said, well, awareness is really, say you are starting to feel chilly. And so you realize, I'm feeling chilly. And so you go get a sweater on. Or you make yourself a cup of tea. That's awareness. It's not really woo-woo. So if you or you go get some socks or whatever. If you are feeling hot, same thing. You put on a tank top, or you turn on the air conditioning.
Or if you're feeling sad, or you're feeling angry, or you're feeling whatever
Yes.
it might be,
Yes.
then being aware of that is not something that is out of the ordinary.
Well,
It's part of being human.
And you would admit it, right?
Yes.
I'm really hot. And you would tell everybody, I'm hot. You start doing it. So as you become aware of yourself.
At a deeper level, on many levels.
Yes. So you can eat things, drink things. You may decide to stop drinking, which I have as well, because I don't like the way I feel after even having one glass of wine any longer. And so you I feel this way when I do this, and I don't like the way I feel when I do that. And this sort of helps you, guides you to the idea of it feeling better.
And so this is one of the tools, I imagine, that you talk about with people that you interact with here, they can bring home and do when they're not in Sedona. So anybody can sit down anywhere and journal and write down what they're feeling, what they've eaten, what they're thinking, all those things.
Yeah, for sure. People ask, well, how am I going to do any of this at home? And so, I don't know where they live, for instance. Well, do you have, let's think of some places you might be able to go. Do you have a creek or a river around you? Because there's going to be rocks there and water there. Great place to sort of, become aware of yourself and try to calm yourself.
And I don't think I've ever been to a city or town that doesn't have a park somewhere.
Yes, a park, maybe a duck pond. I love a duck pond myself. There, even if the water is yucky, but maybe there's a fountain or some place that's beautiful. even if it's really noisy. But there's still that elemental piece there that can perhaps calm them.
Well, and we use our mind then, or it's easier to use our mind then to connect with the earth, because we're going to a place where our intention is to connect with the earth. So the intention's a huge part of it.
Yeah, when you become, when you start doing this and you become the observer, that means you begin to notice. And I have a song that I sing. It's kind of childish. And it's one thing that people can do easily is just start noticing things. And this is also an act of mindfulness. Like, I'm watching an ant. Literally, one of my dearest sisters taught me this. I hope she's watching. That there is an entire universe happening when you're sitting on the grass. And she taught me to watch. There was an ant crawling on a blade of grass. And we sat and witnessed the earth below and all around us. And she showed me native bees, how little tiny native bees are as opposed to the littler honeybees. There's so much happening around us, and we're so busy that we don't stop to slow down to even watch the sweetest things.
And the ironic thing about mindfulness is it's not about being in the mind. It's about being in the moment and calming our mind.
Yes.
And being aware.
It is so amazing to be in this sort of animistic space of...
Animistic, you got to explain that for me.
Animals.
Okay,
So
thank you.
our world is consisting of all of this sort of technology now, and lights and cameras and action and a hamster wheel that people feel stuck on. And it's actually so simple.
Well, we're not only feel stuck in it, we're also, our ego is energized by it.
Oh yeah, we are jazzed. We are always going. There's always something to do. If you want, you can engage it fully, or you can pull back a little. And even just sitting in the grass, which I've met people in Sedona now and other places that never take their shoes off, that don't get dirty. And I know I was one of these girls. I don't like dirt. I didn't like getting dirt under my nails. I wasn't really into gardening because I don't like bugs. Wake up, Angela. That's how your food grows. So we're somewhat disconnected from the earth. I mean, I've met children that never even seen a carrot grow out of the ground. If you can imagine that. I have a dear friend, Larkin, that showed how he grew things in his greenhouse. And my daughter got to see that as part of our process when she was like 6th grade, 7th grade. And my daughter's so funny. Here's all this beautiful salad growing, and carrots and peas and beans and and she goes, wow, I could really do some damage in here with a bottle of ranch. She was all connected to the idea of that she was going to make a salad. It was so funny. That we're very disconnected from the earth in that way. So when we begin to observe, slow down, and be mindful of our actual surroundings, gets a little simpler, gets a little less confusing.
And it takes us into our body, which takes us into our heart and our emotions, and an opportunity to feel things that we've been avoiding.
So true. Watching a little bug is really a heartfelt thing. It's the simplest little, almost childlike experience that we as adults maybe don't stop to do. And it's amazing. We have this beautiful purple bush outside of our house, and it blooms seemingly all at once, and then all the blooms fall off. But when it blooms, numerous times in the summer, all the pollinators go to this bush. And it is so incredible to stand there and to look at the bush and experience all of the pollinators and the little tiny native bees that I know of now, and the honeybees, and we get those hummingbird moths in Arizona. So nature, it's so innocent, and so it brings us into that innocence.
And it's in the moment with no worry. If it needs to do something, it senses intuitively what to do, and there's no worry about the rain or the wind or anything, or what its latest Instagram post is. Or
Right. Although I did take a video of it and put it to a really cool sound.
Well.
I think it got a lot of hits, actually. That's funny.
So tell me a little more about your background in healing. What got you started? Are you a good witch? Are you a bad witch?
So, yeah, I mean, I've asked people this many times, and it's pretty common actually, but my awakening, if you will, started in about 2005 with the movie and the book, The Secret. That's where it starts for a lot of people. So that book was a very big catalyst. And it got me understanding that maybe there was more than what I have been taught. That maybe there was some mysterious stuff that I'd like to investigate. And I got into the law of attraction and setting intentions. I participated in when YouTube was just coming out in 2006, and I was doing these 100-day challenges, and I would set intentions, and I would make a vision board. I've met some of the most glorious people, including Megan Castron, who's now, she's from Australia. She's YouTube famous. I'm not YouTube famous, but she was one of the original 100-day challenge participants, and it was called CCOR, Co-Creating Our Reality.
Okay.
And met some amazing lifelong friends. And over time, all the vision boards, almost everything on those boards has come true because I started to learn. Another author and dear brother, Tony Burrows, he taught the intending game, that you make it fun. And some of his stories and experiences that I had heard over the years made it where I was really inspired by helping other people make intentions. And then we had a group for a while. Michael, my fiance, and I, we actually held a group where people would come together and we would play the intending game, and we would share our intentions, and then we would share our gratitudes for the things that had started to happen.
Which is very powerful.
Oh gosh, it was so fun to hear everybody, cheer each other on, because all we were doing was thinking good thoughts, basically, or thinking of certain things that we wanted to bring into our lives. So this was well before I started doing the elemental connection. This was in 2008, 2009. And then slowly but surely, I kind of went from a more, what you might call mainstream aspect of like the law of agreements and the law of attraction to a more spiritual side of things.
And what does that look like?
Well, I learned what a chakra was, and that was the beginning. I
Okay.
remember a time in my life I didn't even know what a chakra was. A chakra. So I learned about the root chakra. And, I used to be like a Starbucks addict, and I was totally ungrounded, and I was, I wore high heels, and I had no concept of what it was to be grounded. And I remember a dear friend, Anakin, said, you got to start wearing red more. You got to get out of these high heels. And so one day I came in and I was like, here's my red outfit. And I had red from head to toe. And I started learning what each energy center of the body was. And that was sort of a process of healing my own energy centers and the imbalances and things that I had.
It's a process of awareness of our own way of being, because we are here in a physical body, and we are spirit coming through that body, but our connection with, our spiritual mindful connection with our body changes when we start to become aware of those things.
And I've had so many amazing teachers and elders and friends that have helped me. I name them frequently because it's, I think it's important to share. But there was a dear man, again, I already spoke to. His name was Larkin Stentz. He's an amazing flute player, and he plays the, whatever that thing is called. And he's just an amazing man, dear, wonderful man in my life. And he's the one that shared with me that we each have our own dancing space. We each have, this close we are responsible for. And the rest outside of that is Shakespeare's drama. And it always really resonated with me, and I share that with people quite frequently, that, I'm responsible for my dancing space above and around and all around me. That's my auric field, if you will, conscious space. And everybody else gets to deal with themselves. And there's a sense of self-responsibility in there that it really helps you feel like you can come home to yourself and take your own personal domain and sovereignty and be right here.
And part of that is learning boundaries as well.
Oh, yeah.
A big part of that.
And boundaries maybe doesn't happen right away. For most people, we haven't been taught the best boundaries.
So what's your experience around your own learning to set boundaries and how that changed your life?
I learned I had terrible boundaries. I didn't know, I don't even know that I'd really set boundaries, to be honest. And because of that, I would fall victim to being controlled or having a power over schema. I would put people on pedestals, or I would lower myself and shrink myself because I felt someone was more knowledgeable or, you know, more better than me. I always joke that, more better piece. And through learning that they're human too, and they are going to crumble and fall off that pedestal, and then that heartache and that learning it's been a really big piece to my journey.
And along that path, throughout that process, then you learn more about connecting with your source and finding the power within your source, within your higher self.
Yeah, when things aren't, you know, when things get really crazy, it's because they get really fast. Everything really speeds up when there's stress. And then you can't think, you're outside of yourself, you're not even in your body. And so over time, as you begin to know thyself, which is maybe the most important piece, you realize, oh gosh, I hate the way I feel. I do not like the way I feel when I am outside of myself. Everything gets really crazy.
Okay, so that still happens. No matter how evolved we get, we're still human. And we're still going to have those challenges of, okay, I'm feeling off center, I'm triggered, I'm angry, I'm disappointed, whatever that is. What tools do you use now to...
Yes, so this is my favorite thing. It's teaching halts or shalt, S-H-A-L-T or H-A-L-T-S. And again, it's self-assessing. And it comes back to, I'm not a victim. The world what's happening is happening for me, not to me.
Okay, so let's break it down a little more. So when you recognize that you're reacting to something, instead of taking mindful action, you're reacting because we're human, we have an emotional response, then do you recognize that right away? Through practice, we do. But if somebody's new to this, how can they recognize that sooner and say, wait a minute, I don't need to be reacting this way. I am responding from something internal. And now how do we take our first step back? How do we take a breath? How do we address that?
First things first is what's going on for me right now. Like, just ask. You can generally say, I do not like the way I feel right now. I feel stressed, I feel chaotic, whatever the case may be. And that's when you say, okay, slow things down. It's an earth thing, slow everything down, breathe, and ask, and maybe go inside. So you slow down earth, you breathe air, and then you go inside and you just ask, what's going on?
So when you say go inside, you mean stop looking outside.
Yes.
Take a breath, feel.
Yes.
And then see what we're feeling. Go inside to see where our feelings are, what our intuition is, and even watch our mind. If our mind is engaging, we can observe that, and we don't have to be part of that, what they call monkey mind, which is just our old patterns running.
Well, even if you're in monkey mind, because chances are you are, it's like, okay, what's going on for me right now? And quite often, what I recognize is I'm hungry.
Okay.
I mean, most of the time. Or I'm going through perimenopause, so it could be hormonal. For many of us, women especially, if you're hungry or hormonal, you got to take care of it.
I agree with that.
And then secondly, you could be tired. You might need to take a break from all of this if you are able to, and take a little walk, get a little refreshing breath of fresh air. There's multiple things that be going on for you, and when you begin to self-assess and say, what's going on for me right now? Maybe you're feeling overwhelmed. Why am I feeling overwhelmed? There's too many people around. Great. Another air element. I'm going to take space, go to the bathroom. You can always exit stage right if you say you have to go to the bathroom. No one's probably going to question you.
Okay.
So slowing down is earth, taking a breath is air, and looking inward. That kind of all happens at the same time. And it slows everything down.
And then once we learn those tools to be able to slow down and observe rather than engaging from a place of emotional response, then we can also learn other tools that'll take us to a deeper level of working with the emotions that we're feeling at the time, whether they're emotions that are created in the moment from our interaction with the world right now, or whether there are emotions that we're reminded of from when we were 6 years old, then we can learn tools at a deeper level to work with those as well.
Yeah, and I like to tell people, I mean, if you yell at someone because that's your moment, that's the moment you're in, you know, that was your authentic self. Perhaps it's a boundary that needed to be, whatever you do, you can always learn and grow from it. Even if you're upset with yourself for having reacted different, you would have perhaps reacted differently.
And so what you're saying is you're not condoning yelling at somebody, but you're saying it's an opportunity to observe ourselves.
Absolutely.
And to get in touch with something deeper within ourselves.
Probably you yelled because there is some overwhelm there that you had, you know, sort of like the fire rose and now we've got a dragon. This happens.
And there are ways to be able to work with that within ourselves.
Absolutely.
So that we don't always respond that way. So we can figure out what within inside of us has caused us to act in that way. Mm-hmm. And so this is some of the work that you do with people, I imagine.
Yeah, and I will say there is a lot of shame around feelings of upset, irritation, frustration, agitation. This is one thing that I've recognized. You know, we live in a world that there's a lot of unhealth in our environment, you know, our air, our food. There's a lot going on for us here that could upset you. Probably pick one out of a million things. And it's all about becoming aware of what it is that we really care about. And that's why we have these emotional reactions.
So we're talking about two different levels. One is a logical response, setting boundaries, dealing with the logic and the reason of the problem. And also at the same time, we have the opportunity to look at our own internal feelings from the present moment or from the past. And then we have the opportunity to work with our own emotions around those outside events. And this is, you do this kind of work with people?
Yeah, if people, here's one, if people have not respected your boundaries, you might have an emotional response. That's pretty common.
And
if your neighbor comes over unannounced all the time and they're not respecting your boundary, you could have an emotional response.
And so if you're working with somebody who's having a particular type of emotional response they're going through, it may be considered a pattern, it may be considered, there's a lot of ways to talk about it. It may be considered an old wound that wants to be re-experienced and healed. Then part of your work is helping people get in touch with those wounds and healing those wounds.
Yeah. And it can be that they have a throat chakra that needs a little activating. And that can be important for the importance of communicating your boundaries, which a lot of women, especially, I know myself, I had a fair amount of weakness in my shoulder, especially on the left side, which is your feminine side, in the throat chakra. And if you have pain in different areas of the body, it could be related to a energy center that's weak per se. So learning to communicate in love and firm. And people have ideas of what it is for a woman to be firm, maybe differently for a man to be firm. But, you know, you're not a bitch if you say no.
But if we're firm, if we set our boundaries from a place of love for and respect for ourselves, and at the same time, love and respect for the person that we're setting the boundary with.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't help them to encroach in our boundaries in an inappropriate way. And at some point in time, they need to hear from that this is inappropriate. Yeah. And when we can do that from a place of love and compassion for them, and come from a centered place where we're actually of open heart and even vulnerable possibly, then the experience is completely different. It's more healing for us. It can be healing for them if they're ready for that, and they can actually hear what we have to say if we're centered and we're responding from a place of love. Yeah. And you and I have talked about this a little bit when we talked last week about helping people get to a place where they go to their heart more than going to their mind when they're reacting. And first we react, and then we observe, and then we use the tools that we have and what we learn to get in touch with the love of Source and the tools that we have and the support systems that we have and the ways to get to approach the challenge from a different perspective.
And believe me, if there's shame and upset, most people don't want to come at things from that place. They want to come at it from a more balanced, level-headed, if you will, or from a heart space.
So I don't know what the right word is, not necessarily services, but the
Offerings.
The offerings, thank you. The offerings that you have, that people have the opportunity to go through with you and to work with you on, you're able to help those people get through their shame, to get through their hurt, to get through the challenges that are causing them to react. And you're able to create a safe place and take them through exercises and hold that space for them to heal those things. And that's a big part, from what I understand, of what you do.
Yes, I like people to know, I call it sort of like the dumping or the throwing up. I want them to tell me it, give me all of it. And I try not to ask too many questions because there's some sort of safety that begins to happen when they know they just said all the things and they're good. They're still alive and I heard them. Most people with healing, especially deep emotional pain, they're missing a few components, which is to be seen, and to be heard and to be witnessed. And so if someone just said, well, I've had this recently, that was maybe the first time I actually ever felt heard. Or that was the first time I actually felt seen by somebody. And I just feel like, well, I'm just here to help you and say whatever you want. I'm not going to judge you. And believe me, there's been some wild things that people have shared. And I really, truly don't hold... I haven't heard anything yet that's overly shocking. I mean, and I've heard some quite wild things. So there's sort of a sensation of maybe a confessional where they're almost letting go of things that they haven't shared with anyone. And that is, and I've experienced this myself, in sort of this confessional way of letting go of things that you've never told anyone. There's just this release that begins. It's like a raveling piece of yarn, at the beginning, how it's this big ball, but there's one.
It takes energy to keep that within us and to not share it.
Yeah. I think sometimes the energy you extend to keeping it where no one finds out is maybe more energy than the healing and then being good to go.
And holding that energy, there's negative aspects of that.
So if you can find someone in your life that isn't, that can love you unconditionally and can hold space without trying to fix it, that's beautiful.
And for us men, we always want to jump in and fix it because that's what we're used to doing in our world. But the listening is a part that I know from talking with you, you're really good at, and you're able to provide that space and that opportunity for people to speak without judgment.
Thank you. I mean, life is a wild ride. It's like we're on one of those rides at Disneyland or whatever, 9 flags or 7 flags. You on the pirate ship, whatever. It's pretty wild out here. And we don't know necessarily what's coming next. We only know that we're here. We're trying to show up as best we can. There is no book to follow. In fact, quite often it feels like a choose your own adventure book. If you made one decision and then you read along, you're over here. But if you had made another decision and you go over here, we don't know. And once you've chosen the next page and you're on some totally different adventure, it does become an interesting, you can actually begin to see your life in a new light where, okay, I am actually able to create my own reality by the choices I make, by the intentions I hold, by the beliefs I carry, and look at those beliefs. Is that really what I believe? Who taught me that? Whose voice is in there telling me this? And accessing parts of your previous self, perhaps, and beginning to shift some things in your life to see if it's really serving you. Because quite often, people want to unload their bricks out of their backpack. And so I offer a labyrinth experience.
So when you say unload, you just mean sometimes just to talk about it and to express it. And sometimes that just takes them to a deeper place than they've been in the past. Mm-hmm. And when you provide that space and they can unload, then...
It's relief, to say the least. People literally have, I would say, etheric backpacks that we've been carrying our own stuff. And we've been picking up bricks from other people's stuff along the way, and we don't even know whose stuff it is anymore. But here we are, stuck with all this heaviness and sort of weight. And so one of the offerings is my labyrinth experience that I've been doing here since 2019. 2017, actually, before we even moved here, I was doing labyrinth experiences. And being that it's a stone circle, it seems sort of metaphoric to share with people that they don't have to carry all those bricks anymore. They can lay them down and lighten their load. And maybe the bricks served them at one point. They are not serving them now. Perhaps they never were serving them, but they were carrying them for some reason.
And that might sound really simplistic, but I think it's really profound as well.
Yeah. I like word pictures and, storytelling and helping people know that you're just like anybody else. I've jokingly said, because I was at the Oprah studio, but I didn't get to meet Oprah, but everybody said, oh, she was so amazing. And I was taught that day, Oprah puts her pants on one leg at a time. We all do that. We're all really the same. No matter who we're known to be or how much money we make or whatever. We're all, we all have red blood, so to speak.
We all come from, a part of us comes from source and a part of us comes from the earth.
Yeah, we all have one thing in common. We all come from a mother.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So talk a little bit about some of the books that you like.
Ooh. Well, I love Tony Burrow's books. He had the Intending Game, which I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
And he had, I believe they're called light teachings, which was a specific way of saying your intentions so that they would start to build what he called fortitude. Because after a while, you had enough confidence in the way that you held those beliefs and those thoughts and those intentions that you started, I just loved him, you started to really feel that confidence and that fortitude to where you knew with surety that what you spoke would come to.
To the experiences supports the thoughts, and the thoughts support the experiences, and pretty soon we've got a positive snowball that's building.
Yeah, I mean, he had some wild stories, and I love a good story. And one of, if I may, his story that really impressed me the most was he said he was sitting around, it was 108 or something in the shade, and they were sitting around having some Dr. Peppers or whatever, a group of people, and he was like, well, I'm going to intend, and it was hot. He said everybody was sweating, and he said, I'm going to intend that I get a hot shower by nights, by, the sundown. And they all were like, yeah, right.
And this is out in the wild
camping.
somewhere, camping, okay.
Yeah, and he said, and he was from Hawaii, and he said not long after, here comes a little white-tailed deer, and he'd never seen a deer, he said, in his whole life. So here he went darting after this deer. He thought that was interesting timing. And 3 campsites over, I believe, the campers before him had left a solar shower in the tree, and all of them got a hot shower by night's end. And I felt so inspired by that. And so we really started to play the intending game because of Tony.
And so it might seem like a miracle, but to source, it's all there. It's all easy.
Yeah.
And so when we start to believe that, then those miracles start to happen every day.
And how quick and how close it was. That was something that I've worked on with myself and many others, is this idea that we have to just deeply suffer. And we don't. Not to say it's supposed to be easy or a bed of roses.
But suffering doesn't bring us any closer to God. It doesn't bring us any closer to success. We're taught that it does, but I don't find that to be reality.
And sometimes it's our own self-flogging, our own self-induced misery or something. And, some of that does come from childhood. There may have been a lot of stress. Little children don't know how to deal with stress. So their norm...
They shouldn't have to, but that's part of being on the planet.
So their norm, baseline emotional level of stress is high from childhood. And so unconsciously, people will create drama and traumas, even further stress, to feel normal.
Because they're comfortable with that.
And or not to feel normal, but that sense of agitation is even comforting sometimes for people, even though they don't like it. It's sort of
familiar.
Their familiarity, yeah.
So let's go back. Who's the author again?
Tony Burrow's.
Tony Burrow's. And what book in particular would you recommend from him?
I can't even think of the name of it, but it was called The Intending Game.
The Intending Game by Tony Burrow's. Tell me about another book.
Oh, let's see. I love You Can Heal Your Life by Louise Hay.
That's a wonderful one.
Yeah, it's beautiful pictures. I love that. One of my dearest sisters, Shauna Home, her book, Ishel Wisdom, was transformative for me.
Hang on. Ishel Wisdom?
Yeah, Shauna's story was, I would say, out of all of the women in my life, Shauna have maybe one of the most impactful. I have a handful of amazing dear friends, but Shauna's book came to me when I was seeking, deep seeking from some women's mysteries and some just looking for beauty in the world. And Ishel is a goddess of the moon and an elder, Mayan. And the book is called Ishel Wisdom, which is now, if you go to shaunahome.com.
Absolutely, give her a plug. There's nothing wrong with that.
You love her book. It's transmissions from Ishel.
Okay.
And they're just full of just pulsing of life and beauty. And it totally transformed my spiritual walk.
I was going to ask you, how did it touch you? How did it change your life?
At the time, she had some YouTubes, so she was sharing the transmissions of each chapter through video. And Shauna is just a stunning lady and articulate, and I just fell in love with her. And that book is full of just absolute heartfelt elder Mayan wisdom. It's sacred teachings of the Mayan feminine is what it is.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Let's see, other books that have impacted my life. I just literally had a yard sale and we got rid of maybe 200 books.
Holy cow.
Because after I've read them, I may not read them again. They're not
Some
necessarily
we read 10 times, but some of them we read once and we get what we need.
Yeah, so I would have laughed and said, man, I look like a serious feminist, which I'm not. But it's funny when you look at the books that you collect over the many years. I had many Native teaching books. Black Elk Speaks.
I want to change the subject for a moment.
Okay.
So feminism has been a big topic for 40 years.
Okay.
And now a lot of people are looking at it differently, and they're understanding the power of being feminine rather than the power women think they're going to find by being masculine. So there's always a need for a balance. In men, I've been able to find my feminine, and that's helped me a lot through my intuition and other things. And I've seen women who have been able to embrace their feminine and find their masculine strength at the same time. So you've been through this. What's your take?
So actually, I'm so grateful we're talking about this because Dr. DeMartini has been someone that I have gleaned so much from over the years. And he has numerous books that I have had as well.
Okay.
But one of the pieces he actually has studied in a great deal, is the way that the brain processes. And I find this to be quite fascinating. When there may be some projections, a woman is too in her masculine or a guy isn't feminine enough. What he had shared, which I found to be profound, is that when you have a life that is in alignment with your ideals and your values, you're going to offer the body the ability to have more blood, glucose, and hormones to flood the forecenter of the brain, which it's the executive center, your forefront of your brain, where you would make decisions based on things that matter to you, for instance.
Right, discernment and decisions and the choices that we make.
Right, and so being in alignment with yourself and your highest ideals and your values and taking a good assessment of what gives you energy, what really drives you, is going to give you more of the ability actually to make better decisions. And I find that so fascinating. And if you don't, which I had to personally,
but that's more typically of a masculine trait.
might be
Okay,
considered
might be.
considered more
The thinking
masculine.
part of that might be. The intuitive side is more feminine.
Well, the opposite of that would be you aren't in alignment with your ideals and values and stay in the back of the brain, which is the amygdala, fight or flight, which we don't want to hang out in.
First brain, dinosaur brain. Okay.
And that's where we go into fight or flight, and it releases adrenaline and cortisol.
And make stupid decisions.
And make maybe not the best decisions.
Okay.
So I love the idea of if I am in alignment with my heart, my core values, my, the things I care about, the things that matter to me, the things that give me joy, these things, are going to offer me more in alignment from my brain. My actual neuro center is going to give me more of a pulse for the things that are going to give me more objectivity. Not to say you still can't tune into your emotions or you still can't tune into your intuition. You'll just have more objectivity by doing that.
And there is a difference between our intuition and our emotions. And that's a real challenge for those who are learning to work with their intuitions, or those who have wounds. And sometimes their wounds feel like intuition, and they make decisions based on their wounds rather than their true intuition. So what's your experience as to how to listen to your intuition?
Well, it's a balance. You know, you want to be able to have logic and reason because that's important. And you also want to feel into your heart space whether this is right for me. And also feel into your gut and see if this is something that's going to propel you forward. I like to call it the Care Bear stare.
The what now? You got to explain this one.
The Care Bears were, you know, the cartoon from the, 80s, 90s. And that's the hara energy, that dantian, the center of your will. It's the gut instinct.
Okay, our power center.
Yeah.
Okay.
So if you tune in from the third eye, your intuition, your deep knowing, and there's ways of actually stimulating the pituitary gland or your third eye, Anja chakra. Whew, we're getting now. That's one of the reasons why I started researching Kundalini Yoga, because from that space of empowered energy center, from that gut, it isn't about having a six-pack. It's about having strength from that inner core of your being, connected to your heart and connecting to your foresight, that gives you that somewhat ease of movement in the world.
Well, a lot of us are taught also to deny our power. So we shut down our third chakra, our power center, because those around us didn't want us to have power, or we were, our parents were afraid of us, or we were shamed, or whatever that might be. And so we shut that down, and there's nothing wrong with having that power. We're here to do good things, and we can only do that from a place of our heart and our power and a balance of all of our chakras.
Yeah. Well, and you'll notice when you begin to practice being the observer, a lot of times if you're in, maybe you might say the back of the brain, fight or flight, you can tell it doesn't feel good. You're panicking. People have anxiety, asthma attacks. Your breath shuts down. So you begin to literally lose your breath because you disconnect from aspects of yourself because of fear, because of legitimate things that are concerning, whatever that may be. You literally turned into a little rabbit that had to run away because that's the instinct that comes to you is, I got to get out of here. Fight, flight, or freeze, they call it.
But in time, we can learn to recognize that. We can learn tools to deal with that, to come back and calm the fear, to find our center, and to act in a way that we're not being reactive, while we're in observance of our own mind, our own emotions, and we get an opportunity to work through those things. And from my experience, as we work through healing more of those things that come up when we're triggered, then, and again, these are some of the tools that you teach people to be able to identify that, work through the challenges, work through the emotions, and then get to a place where they're making decisions in their life and they're being discerning and making choices rather than reacting.
Yeah. And it's okay to flail forward, I call it. It's okay to not be perfect. And that's something that I think, especially women, guys too.
Guys too, we have embarrassment. It's a form of shame, but again, guys don't always respond well to the idea of shame because we're shamed about our shame.
Right, nobody wants to show up and be vulnerable, but that is actually a strength. It can be your superpower, in fact. And one little thing that I offer is when you recognize I'm triggered, first and foremost, there is a treasure in the trigger, and that's most likely your fire element.
It's a gift.
Illuminating something that you need to look at. And it's actually so fun to be like, oh, I'm triggered. Why am I being triggered?
And for a lot of people watching, they're going to say, holy cow, you're crazy. What do you mean? I'm upset, I'm triggered. That's nuts. But when we get to a place of clarity, which takes time as that positive snowball of healing and learning grows, then we can really truly learn to see those triggered events as gifts. And we can learn to and build habits around responding in a positive way and embracing those things.
Yeah, I mean, you might not be like, oh, I'm so happy you triggered me. Thank you, I'm so grateful. No, that's probably not. But you may, after a few minutes of calming down and recognizing what's going on for you, maybe get something to eat, maybe get a cup of water, to have some go-tos. Maybe have, a little snack, a protein bar.
Or a breathing exercise, or a mandala, or
Yeah.
a
Breathe
mantra.
in through the nose for 5 seconds. Breathe out through the nose for 5 seconds.
So there's a treasure in the
Trigger.
yeah.
Treasure in the trigger, absolutely.
And also, never underestimate the power of a nice hot bath. I love water, obviously, but find the one element that speaks to you, whether you take a hike and go find that windy space that's going to really blow your hair and make you feel like nothing matters. I'm in this moment. Here
Which
I
takes
am.
us out of our mind, back into our body, where we can actually feel, where we can actually embrace the emotions and heal and find a way back to connect with the earth.
And the ideal is when we're in that space of agitation, frustration, irritation, trigger, beginning to work with the nervous system. I talk about this a lot to people. It can be a blood sugar issue. If you're feeling super freaky all of a sudden, panicked, it might be a good idea to see a doctor or to tune into your blood sugar levels or what's going on with your health.
So what you're saying is address the physical level first,
It's
which
a
is
good idea.
which is most important, because we have to protect our body. We have to find a way to be centered in our body before we can get to a deeper level.
Yeah, if you're having breathing problems, yes, there's anxiety and yes, there's stress happening, but you may need to go have a chest x-ray and make sure. And have someone, and maybe in the medical field, say you're not dying, or it's going to be okay. And hold your hand and look at you as a human being and say it's going to be okay.
And then that's something also, a tangent for a moment, or go a different direction based on what you just said, which is when somebody starts going through spiritual growth, then a lot of things come up. A lot of drama comes up and things we need to deal with. A lot of physical challenges come up as we're changing our way of being in our body and addressing our life.
People will get a swollen ankle or their heart beating out of their chest. Or for me, my left eye, I had to go to the hospital because I thought my eye was going to come out.
It didn't. It still looks pretty good.
I started having some wild stuff, and I've heard it from others as well. You will have a stuck energy that may have shifted or moved, depending on whether you had a massage or an energy session, a Reiki session, or a sound healing, or just an epiphany, taking a walk.
And so if somebody's been through all this and they get to the other side, which we always do, it doesn't kill us, and we say, wow, okay, that was tough, but it was worth it. So for those who are just starting on this journey, they're like, this doesn't sound like fun.
It isn't. I'm just kidding.
Well, no, you're not kidding. It's not always fun. It's really
not.
not always fun.
Yeah.
But is it worth it?
Well, I joke, this is one of the funniest parts of healing, is that if you can get to a place where you can giggle at things, you know that there's been a level of healing that's occurred, that's taken place. And so if you aren't able to laugh, keep going. But it has to come to a place where the ridiculous is apparent. And sometimes the things we go through seem so wild.
So what you're saying is the pain and the challenge of the journey is worth it. And it's not an easy journey, but as we go through it, our life gets better.
You may shift the way you eat. You may shift the way what you drink. You may not go to this fast food place ever again. You may not step foot in that person's house. You may not go to that concert. You may not watch that movie. You might try it again later and be like, yep, nope, I'm back where
But at
I
the same
was.
time, hopefully we're finding more peace.
Yeah.
We're finding less drama. We're finding better health. We're finding better relationships.
Yeah, well, setting boundaries there's a reason. You don't just do it just to do it. You set the boundary. So why? That's a good point here. To provide safety for yourself, to provide sanctuary for yourself so that you feel protected and guided and that you're okay. Because you get to have to take care of you.
But for a lot of people, that's odd concept to put themselves first.
Yeah, it is. Mostly women specifically aren't taught that. But the first thing they'll tell you when you get in an airplane is put your own oxygen mask on first. If we are continuing to give from an empty or half full cup, we aren't really giving in a good way.
And we're setting a bad example for others.
Yeah, and so what does that look like? Wow, maybe I should get regular massage to help my body, or take myself for a pedicure, or give myself nice things, feed myself nutritious food on a regular basis.
Get a good night's sleep on a regular
Yeah.
basis. Some of those simple things make a big difference.
Looking at your environment to see what needs to be cleaned up. What in my life do I need to shift so that I feel a little more peace? And, you know, it's, as they say, take a bite out of the elephant a little bit at a time. You don't have to do it overnight. You may want to do it overnight,
But that's impossible.
but you
When
may
we
need
try,
to
when we
take
try to do that,
it might take some time.
yeah, it takes some time.
And as you pull the thread out, so to speak,
Mm-hmm.
you'll see things. And if you have a partner, or kids, and people in your life, they're going to have to see why this is important to you. And this is a big process for a lot of people. They might come on a retreat, and they're like, I'm going to do all this fabulous stuff. And then they're like, but I have to go home, and my family's not going to be down for this. So it's an ongoing process.
That's a whole hour conversation within itself about how the people in our lives change as we change, and we put ourselves first, and we become more clear.
Totally. My fiance and I think we do a pretty fantastic job, if I may say, respecting one another and our own personal boundaries. We both have our stuff. We like to eat together. We like to do things together. So we have our little powwow conversation in the morning, talk about what we're going to do for the day, have a sincere acknowledgement of what each other is doing, participate in each other's day. See what your kids are doing. See what's going on with the dogs. What are you wanting to do? And what does your life look like? Maybe shifting things that aren't in alignment with your ideals and values. And then after the day is over, how'd we do? And what do you got going on tomorrow? And spend time letting them know what is important and what you need. And open the door for what they need. And work in synergy to try to bring and cultivate peace in your life. It may not happen overnight. It's like a garden. It takes cultivation.
And we're going to make some mistakes when we first start to do that. And that's one reason people don't want to start down that road, is because they're afraid to look silly or make mistakes or offend their partner.
Yeah. In 2007, that happened for me. I definitely wanted to make some changes in my life, and I ended up separating from my spouse. And it was sad and wonderful all in the same day. And I will say that does happen for people. They need to find another path, because the path you're on isn't going to work with what they want to bring. So it's a whole piece to the puzzle. Having the correct or aligned partner is a really big piece.
Huge part.
And then teaching your children how and why you live and want to live in this way, so that ideally, we all have a good time. We all feel good in our bodies. We're all happier. We feel more peaceful, more joyful. Otherwise, what's the opposite of that? Chaos. And nobody really enjoys that. I mean,
They may be distracted by it for a while, and the ego loves distractions, but when it comes down to it, peace and safety and security, we're really looking for.
and boundaries are not the funnest, I would say. It's not a fun day when you have to tell your family members, we're not coming because we're not doing this any longer. Or they may call you, I've had this, they call you boring, or you're no longer fun.
Yeah, I've
Or
heard that one before.
because you won't go see this type of movie, or you won't go to this concert, or you won't go to this restaurant, or whatever.
Or won't drink.
Yeah.
And I enjoy a drink still from time to time. But
Right.
I've been with partners who said, oh, you're boring when you don't drink. Well, this is who I am. I'm really happy just
But what does that
being
say
calm.
about drinking? You have to be the one that's drinking in order to be fun? Wow. So it's a good idea to get in touch with, am I really boring?
there's-
Is that true?
There's
No.
a balance in everything. But back to what you're saying, which is when we change, then sometimes there's not space for those people in our lives anymore. But they have the opportunity to change with us in a positive way at the same time. That's their choice.
I'm not condoning, divorce, but at the same time, it was a very healthy choice for me. And in hindsight, I was more afraid to tell my parents and other ones, family members and things, than I was with my ex-husband. So he's my daughter's dad. He's now passed last April, but we had a wonderful friendship afterwards because we actually honored and respected each other to a degree. I mean, it wasn't always easy, but we had a daughter to raise. And so when you set your intention, which I did, I set the intention that I would be cordial with him and that we would do the best we could. And my daughter is 27 and amazing, and I feel that's one thing we did really well, was divorce peacefully and amicably, which I believe you can do.
That's a positive thing. Mm-hmm. So what else would you like to cover? We have, another, I don't know, we got 10 minutes? 10 minutes or so, roughly?
What are the questions? I'm curious.
Yes, are there any other questions?
So all the questions and everything are up.
Oh, I don't have my glasses, so I can't
I
can't see any of that.
There was one in there about water, and is that right?
I wondered why the screen was going over here.
Yeah, there you go. The top one right there.
Thank you.
Angela, can you see that?
Can you see that? I can't see. I'm nearsighted, so
Oh yeah,
this is a question for you.
beautiful. Can you share more about water and your work with the water? I'm intrigued with your identification as mermaid and your work with Grandma Aggie and how water shaped your work. Yeah, so, well, for me, the very first time I ever heard a native person speak in their language, I wept. I wept and wept. In fact, I'm not to be gross, but I
Bald.
boogers coming out.
Yeah.
And I was wiping my face on Michael's arm and I could barely even function. I was just so incredibly moved. I'd never heard a native person speak in their language. And so to sit with native people is perhaps one of the most profound parts of my journey, because they hold a different perspective than a colonial mindset, I would say. They have an understanding of the elements and the importance of the sacredness of the elements, and it really transformed my mindset around the importance of taking care of the earth and taking care of the water and being a baby coming from your mother's womb. I mean, I've heard these things, but hearing an elder, native, and especially a woman speak these things, I was profoundly moved. And I have several dear sisters that were able to sit with Grandma Aggie and know that there's just really hardly anyone else that could speak in her way. She was the most loving, beautiful elder woman ever. And she would talk about the water. And her entire life, as far as I know, was spent conserving water and working with the dams and the salmon people and doing ceremonies with water. And so she would give us a message of profound, life-changing words. And then she would take her eagle feather and would anoint us and smudge us with water. So all I could say is the blessing of being able to sit with her was very, very beautiful.
And that helped you have a different perspective of water and the healing properties of water.
Absolutely, 1,000%. And through the point of you just knowing that you got to sit with someone that was a highly sacred being, one of the 13 indigenous grandmothers. It's pretty potent.
And now, okay, so you haven't answered two questions so far.
Okay.
You didn't answer the question about a mermaid.
Yeah.
And you also didn't answer if you're a good witch or not.
Oh, I'm a good witch.
Okay, we got that.
But
Tell
I
us about
have
the
my
mermaid.
The mermaid is, I recognized this in the last 10 years, maybe 8 years, that when I have something going on, whether I don't feel very good in my body or whatever, I just go take a bath and I can be in there for hours. And it's, people that know me find this funny, but I can stay in the bath for 3 and 4 hours and I don't even care that the water's cold.
Okay.
And I do sometimes make a sacred bath with roses and essential oils and salts and things.
But that helps you get back to center.
Yes, it helps me subdue I have a very fast working mind, and I'll go into logic and trying to work things out in my mind. So what I found is that the water will help me get out of my head, get back into my heart, and in a place where I can calm everything down, slow everything down. The earth does too, but water especially.
It does it for you. Excellent.
I can go into deep meditation and go deep within my own personal psyche and find the goods, that's what I like to tell people, like find the aspects that I'm maybe not enjoying and kind of work them out.
Excellent. What other questions?
So the Mary Magdalene story.
Do you want to talk to that?
Yeah.
Is there a specific question around that, or is it a
That
general
was
question?
so it's like she's asked that a couple times. Monica did, and Mary Magdalene
she wants me to
story,
talk
she
about it.
wants you to
So, okay,
elaborate.
in 2012, I was able to go to Ashland, Oregon, and had this incredible weekend experience. It was the first time I met Shauna Home and another dear sister, Anastasia, and a whole group of amazing, powerful women, and I wondered, why am I here? So this was the first time I'd ever really been in ceremony with women in this way. And on the morning, and I was at a retreat where they were speaking to ancient Greece and some of the ancient mystery school teachings and things. So it was incredibly full of mysticism and mystery, and I was highly intrigued. And so I think it was the second morning, I was wearing a very vivid memory. I was wearing a light blue silky shirt, and I had a white shawl on, and it was, for some reason, the outfit I chose. And so when I went into the temple space, there was one woman sitting in there already, and I sat just to the side of her, because we would be all eventually in one circle. And
But you're outside of the group now, and you're in the temple.
there's nobody else
Okay.
was in there, and I went in early, and there was one woman sitting. And so what happened was the song Ave Maria came on, and I heard the most loving, beautiful voice say, I have known you, I have always known you, I know you, I have always known you, I am in your name. And in that instant, I knew exactly what that meant, which I'll share. And I wept in the woman's lap next to me, and she held me. And as other women were coming in, then the teachings of some of the Mary Magdalene stories I had never heard were spoken to that day. Well, the whole woman's voice that came to me was, I've known you, I've always known you, I'm in your name. My daughter, when she was in my belly, when I was pregnant with her, I had a weird day where she wasn't moving. And that afternoon, when you're pregnant, you're trying to move your belly to get your baby to move. If the baby hasn't moved, it's problematic, and it was very scary, so I started to get nervous. And then finally she kicked, and that was the day. I was not going to name my daughter Jessica. I was going to name her Delaney or Mackenzie. And but I named her Jessica because it means I foreknew you.
And she was probably pissed because she didn't like the other names. So.
She said,
Good
I
reason to
like
give you a kick.
So anyway, my mom's name is Lisa Jeanne.
Okay.
And she named me Angela Jeanne. And so Jessica is Jessica Jeanne. And in that moment, I known you, I have always known you, I am in your name. I knew that to be my mother lineage. Well, a couple of years later, I found out that my Nana's middle name was, I thought Elaine, and it's Aline, A-L-E-N-E. So
Okay.
we have Jean and Aline, and then I found out her mother's name was Mary Jane, and then her mother's name was May. So I have 7 generations of May, Mary, Aline, Jean. And it came to me that that is the sound current of Magdalene.
Oh, interesting.
And I've been shown over the course of time that Magdalene is the magic of light, or a lighthouse, which is to be someone that holds that light energetic. And sound and light is what I offer through sound healing and through, the illumination of really what's true for all of us and what matters the most, which is our connection to the earth and our connection to Source. Or God. Mm-hmm. And it isn't necessarily about any deity per se. It's the chalice. We are each able to really bring, meaningful, potent sounds and frequencies and vibrations through conversation, through our thoughts.
And there's a bit of spirit in all of us. Absolutely. Yeah.
In fact, one of the things I really love to share with people is the ancient Egyptians, they used to weigh the body, and when the Holy Ghost or your spirit, your avatar was no longer moving, the spirit would actually leave, the body, and the body weighs a little bit less. So we have measurable weight. Yeah. We take up space. Our spirit actually holds, I feel like it's 3 ounces. I'd have to Google that.
But it's something.
Yeah.
So one more question, and then we'll finish up with telling people a little bit more about how they can get in contact with you.
So I just want to say I offer mentoring and coaching.
Okay.
On Zoom if wanted, or in person, or on the phone. I also do oracle readings and intuitive guidance in that way. And then I also do outside labyrinth experiences here in Sedona. It's kind of a thing you have to come to, not only to experience the stones, but it's an elemental, personal experience. I do a nighttime and a daytime. Once it gets cool, it's seasonal. So, and then I do outside elemental offerings, which generally anyone that's seeking that type of offering wants to do the cold plunge, Oak Creek, or water cleanse as well.
And if they're not up for the cold plunge, you can still do some sort of ceremony by the water.
Yeah, they want the cold plunge.
Okay. That's not me, but that's okay.
It's so incredible. I'm not a cold water person, by the way. Mermaid is warm water person.
Okay, and
but
so
the cold water is really, it does something to you. It really, and it's momentary.
It brings us into the moment. It does change things.
Cleanses you to the bone. You feel like, whoosh, wow, something really profound just happened.
So they can see what you have to offer on your website. And your website, I imagine, is, John, is on the page you've got up?
Yep, it's been on the web.
On the video?
Yeah,
okay.
Video.
And
I also have a clothing line, which is on the side. It says boutique on the right side.
Okay.
And during COVID, who'd have thunk, I paint, apparently. You just don't know what life is going to offer. So I have a clothing line on my website, which is floral, high-frequency clothing. You can use for, it's women's clothing, but men could wear it, I suppose. And there's kimonos as well as yoga pants. They're very fun.
And if somebody wants to get in touch with you and talk with you actually on the phone, old-fashioned, before engaging, then you have that option as well, and your phone number is on your website.
It is, yes.
Okay. Anything else you'd like to add? This has been wonderful.
Yeah, so great. I love the way that our conversation is just so fluid, and we don't know each other very well. We just met a few weeks ago, and I don't know that I've met someone where I'm going to have such fluid conversation. So it's really a blessing.
Well, thank you. This has been a lot of fun.
Honored, yeah.
It's a lot of fun.
Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you for joining us, and blessings for a wonderful evening.